Welcome to Voice for Infection Prevention, where we explore the latest developments, challenges, and insights in the field of infection prevention and control. With a passion for promoting patient safety and healthcare excellence, we're excited to bring you engaging discussions with experts, leaders, and innovators in the field. So whether you're a seasoned professional or just beginning your journey in infection prevention, welcome to the conversation. This is Voice for Infection Prevention.
Welcome back to Voice for Infection Prevention. Today, I'm joined by Sinthuya Alston, whose journey into infection prevention is truly unique. From coming from a medical background with a passion for infectious diseases, she originally planned to become an infectious disease physician, but found herself falling in love with infection prevention instead. In this conversation, Sinthuya shares how she went from an infection prevention coordinator to a system director overseeing infection prevention, employee health, and sepsis care across multiple hospitals. She discusses how her medical background helped her build a strong partnership with physicians, how she integrated employee health and infection prevention programs, and why emotional intelligence and leadership skills are just as important as clinical knowledge in the field. We also dive into her approach into mentorship, professional development, and process improvement methodologies like Lean Six Sigma, which has helped her optimize infection control efforts at a large scale. Whether you're new to the field or looking to advance into leadership, Sinthuya's insights on career growth and the evolving role of infection prevention are invaluable. You won't want to miss this one. Let's dive in.
This episode is sponsored by Clutch Recruitment, the leading recruiting firm in the country, recruiting exclusively within infection prevention and control.
I just want to jump right in and ask a question that I ask basically to everybody, but I'm curious if you, how you discovered infection prevention as like a career track. Was that something like most people that you just kind of fell into, or is that something you pursued and kind of had an idea about?
Well, I discovered infection prevention right out of med school. So this was not the trajectory that I wanted. However, I did truly believe infectious disease, and that's something that I want to specialize in. And at the hospital that I was at that time, there was a position opened for infection prevention coordinator. And I thought, why not? Let's do this while going through residency and application processes. And I really loved it. And at that time, I did it as a registry position. Once I was done with school, I wanted to really do to see what it was in its entirety. I did that for about a year before getting my CIC certification. And then after that, I was asked to be in a director role to standardize hospitals into a system infection prevention program. And I loved every minute of it from the day that I discovered infection prevention, which was June 2nd of 2014.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so it's been, different layers that I kept finding challenging and interesting from that time period on. And now I really love what I do. I feel like I have a team that it really stands behind infection prevention and is proud to be called in the infection prevention team. And, anyone in infection prevention understands how diverse of job responsibilities that it entails. And I like that, you're not confined to one element that you do on a daily basis, that there's always something new. You can't have an 8 to 5 schedule that's predefined because, as you know, there are many things that come up during that time frame and outside of that time frame that you need to be responsible for. So I landed in it unexpectedly, but I loved every moment of it since then.
Okay. And then let's take a step back to education. So you mentioned residency and medical school. So what did you go to school for like a bachelor's, and then it sounds like you decided med school. So you went straight into get your doctorate. So just take me through that. I guess that path and that plan.
Yeah.
Like, what did you have in your head? You said you didn't necessarily mean to go into infection
Well,
prevention.
I wanted to be an infectious disease physician at some point, so I was in track to do that. Outside of high school, I went into a bachelor's degree. I got my major in biology and a major in French. which I still use my French language a little
Wow.
bit. And then after that, went right into medical school and completed that before jumping into infection prevention.
Okay. So you've taken a unique path. I mean, there's not a ton of doctorally trained infection preventionists. So this is neat. So you went straight from medical school into the kind of a coordinator role. So how do you think, just for people that haven't even thought of this, that are in medical school, how did medical school prepare you for this role?
Honestly, it's what keeps me engaged and challenged, and the ability to have conversations with providers. Providers play a huge role in infection prevention. It's just not a nursing initiative. It's very heavily driven by providers and understanding their world and understanding the clinical pathway, not just surveillance definitions, but the clinical pathway, the management, the treatment of certain disease processes have really made me be able to have those conversations with providers and be able to better collaborate. And that's a part of my job that I really love, is the ability to do that, the ability to have that knowledge base, as well as just the ability to understand their thinking and their reason to why we shouldn't do something or why we should do something, because that helps me better explain to my team why we need to do certain things for patients. It's not always about surveillance definition. There are things that need to be done clinically for a patient, but on the flip end, it gives you a hospital acquired infection, but you've done everything clinically safe for the patient, or is something that's hard to understand. But my knowledge and my background being an MD really helps me understand that and build those relationships.
That's great. And you jumped into the coordinator role. I'm curious, was it what you were anticipating, or did you get into the role and a week later realize, oh wow, this is much bigger than I kind
Well,
of
so
imagined?
yes, I failed to mention that I was registry before then. So I was just doing
Okay.
it in between schooling, and I just did the registry position as needed. At that time, the person that I was working with, who was in the coordinator role, had stepped down or transitioned into another role, so the position was open, and that's kind of what led me into see where things are going to go from that perspective. I said I'll do this for a year, sit this out for a year, put my career path to practicing on hold to just do this for a year, because I really loved the team that I was working with at that time. I loved the executive leadership team, the managers, the directors, the providers that I worked with. And I want to just see what this entails, because it did spark my interest. This is kind of what I was hoping to do, being a doctor, was to prevent infections, help people at large. And I felt a calling to do that at that time when that coordinator position was open. So that's how I jumped into it. And immediately after getting that position, I was able to sit for my CIC based on my year of experience at that time. And that allowed me to really understand what infection prevention is all about. It gave me a new level of respect. It gave me a new level of way that I can contribute to patient safety and how I can be a part of healthcare reimbursement programs, and how I can help, healthcare organizations function better and function with a high focus on quality and safety while caring for these patients, because just one infection is one too many, and trying to
Yeah.
have a process around it is something that really kept me in it. It keeps me in it, and process improvement is something that I'm also very passionate about.
Oh. And talk to me for a second about the certification. I mean, you did that very quickly once you started. Was that something that you just wanted to challenge yourself with, or what motivated you to go and study for that? And was that a difficult course for you, or test for you, or did that come pretty naturally after medical school?
Um, The certification exam is difficult. I feel like it's one of the difficult ones that are out there, and that's why you probably need to wait that time period to gain the experience, to gain the knowledge. But I had the resources that I needed with APIC and with just experience within the facility. That there's a huge data piece to it too, like statistical analysis that comes with the test, and it's something that I wanted to see if I knew if I was good enough to do. Because again, I was on a different path in my career, and if I'm not the right person for this job, I don't want to do more harm than the good that I was intending to do. The certification exam and passing it proved to me that I could do this as well. So that's kind of what the reason why behind me taking that exam to have that certification. The renewal process is, you take a test or you go through the continuing education. Both are equally difficult. Trying to get your continuing education can be difficult if you wait till the last minute or you're not better prepared for it. I've gotten my initial certification, I've gotten recertified, and I'm due again to recertify next year, I believe. So it's just always in the process of learning and growing your knowledge about infection prevention. So no, initially when I took it, it was to prove to myself that I could do it. But I see the value in certification because that does set you apart. I mean, titles, some people have a thing about titles that they don't mean anything or certifications as long as you can do your job well. I truly believe that a CIC behind your name gets you the respect that an IP should have because that exam is difficult, and having gone through that and passing that and keeping up with your certification continues to show your commitment towards infection prevention, but you're also meeting the standards of the knowledge that you need to know to be in this field.
Oh, that's excellent. That's a great answer. Good deal. So let's talk a little bit about your first role. So how big of a facility was that? Did you join a team? Did you have a good support system around you? Just tell me about kind of what your work looked like that in that
Yeah.
first role.
I believe it was so long ago. I believe it was just over 100 beds, if I'm not mistaken. And it was, myself as infection control coordinator. There wasn't anyone else in IP at that time. I didn't end up replacing me. That was there. But my direct report at that time was to the quality director at the hospital. But I did work very closely with the system infection prevention director, and I had peers that were part of the same. We were one system at that time, but there were other hospitals that functioned independently. So I was in very close relationship with another IP at a different facility, closer to mine, but still a different facility. And she really mentored me through my infection prevention knowledge um, and just really helping me understand the process, the policies, the procedures, and just training me through that. But we were able to still have lots of support from the facility managers, the providers, like I mentioned before. So it was a good collaboration. I mean, team work and collaboration surrounding infection prevention is something that I've always cherished because I can't do what I do without the team surrounding and helping with those initiatives.
So you had good system support, it sounds like, and you had people around you that were good. How long you were still by yourself though, leading the program at the hospital? How long did it take you to really feel comfortable and feel like you had a good grasp on what you were doing and felt confident giving answers and felt confident being the lead person there?
It took a while because I don't think you could ever feel fully confident as an infection preventionist that you always know everything that you need to know. It is a journey in education and understanding that you're always going to not know something, and accepting that is something that makes you become more confident in not knowing what you don't know. So, it took me a little bit to realize that I can't know everything that I need to know. And I can't be super comfortable with everything that I'm doing, because there's always instances, even now, that I need to look to experts. I need to look to the people who do their job and who can provide me those answers. So my level of confidence didn't come from knowing everything that I need to do. It came from knowing that I'm always going to not know what I need to do, but knowing who the resources are to get help was what made me confident in that role at that time, which makes me confident in
Gotcha.
my
No,
role at this time.
yeah, no, that's a good answer. So you stayed in this role for about 3.5 years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was your next step? What was the next position?
So I stayed in that role for 3.5 years, and then my, matrix report, which was the IP director at that time, realized the potential in me to do something bigger outside of that one hospital. She took me out along with two other folks to really define and describe and build the standardized infection prevention program that this organization currently has, with those three IPs, along with a very big multidisciplinary team. That's when I realized my ability to define processes and to come up with how we can work smarter and not harder, to have those additional resources, to have a surveillance team, to have different functions within infection prevention that allows the facility IP to do what they need to do, but we also have a rigor and a process around the core of infection prevention, like surveillance and reporting to public, reportable diseases, et cetera. So that kind of took me in that direction, and I really enjoyed what I was working on, that I was given the opportunity at that time, which I'm so thankful for, to be a multi-site director for a large geographic area that encompassed many hospitals. Originally, it entailed a different composition of hospitals, and then, based on acquisitions and mergers, I ended up with a different combination of hospitals prior to leaving that organization. But even within that role, I continued to discover different ways that we can improve upon things. And that's kind of what made me be successful in that multi-site director role as well for infection prevention.
Okay. And let me just point out, I mean, you're being very humble about it, but going from a infection prevention coordinator position to a multi-site director after 3 years is frankly unheard of. So this is a very impressive thing that you were able to do. So I want to know, how did you prepare yourself for that role? I mean, you were managing a department, you didn't have people reporting to you. I imagine in the new role, maybe not direct reports, but you certainly had a team that you were overseeing. But how did you gain the management experience and that kind of skill set you needed um, to get that next role?
Yes, I think, a lot of it is people skills. Management of people is really hard. You could be a really good manager of projects and processes, but management of people is really hard. And, I looked to my mentors at that time, who was my leader, or the infection prevention director at that time. She was really helpful in helping me learn some of those skill sets and coming up with strategies to work through crucial conversations, and just building up emotional intelligence to really understand and get people through hard times. I think that that's something that I feel proud of in my accomplishments, is really understanding that somebody's weakness can be your strength if you use it the right way. And that has allowed me to build trust and build relationships with my peers as well as my direct reports to give them that level of trust, and but just really having crucial conversations. I don't think, us in infection prevention really get the ability or the training to do crucial conversations. But sometimes, providing feedback is really important. How you provide feedback is also important. And the how we provide feedback is sometimes not taught to us. And my mentor at that time was able to really help me understand that. And I do think that plays a big role in my current, success in my roles that I've held.
Yeah, and what is this? What was this transition like? Because this had to be just a totally different job, a totally different day to day. Um, how much difference was that position from your coordinator position?
Day and night. So the coordinator position was very, frontline. It's like going from bedside nursing to a nursing manager role. The infection prevention coordinator was someone who rounded. I did a lot of audits on the floors. I had interactions with patients and with staff on a daily basis. When I went to the multi-site system director role, I didn't have those interactions with frontline staff and with staff on a day-to-day basis outside of my team. There's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of focus on strategy and strategic planning and coming up with deadlines for your team and coming up with assignments. So it's truly a leader role. And at the beginning, I did miss being part of the front line and being out and about and rounding. However, I discovered that as the leader in that role, I was able to have more time to really build and paint a picture of how I want infection prevention within my division to look like. And we were able to really come up with some neat processes like a standardized HAI review process, coming up with a system on call IP structure. So, being in infection prevention, you're always on call, but limiting that to when you're on call because you have these additional resources. That's the beauty of being part of a system team. Really helped that team when we were going through this at that time to have more of a work-life balance, because it allowed us not only to standardize our practices and standardize how we answer questions from the different facilities, because each facility has a different makeup, right? So you're taking care of a different patient population, you're in a different geographic area, you have different resources available to you, you have different specialties that you care for. And having a standardized call system at that time really helped us become more of a team and become more cohesive. And that's a part of the job that I was very different, was, being over um, leading and planning for what the program looks like versus doing day-to-day tasks was a shift, but it was a shift that I embraced and that I really enjoyed and that I was ready for.
Um, that's great. And I've talked to a lot of people that have made that transition, and it's kind of split. I mean, there's a lot of people that miss the frontline work and really just enjoyed that piece of the job, and there's other people that are happy to be out of it and have a kind of a larger impact and be able to paint the picture as you've said. But what about you personally? I mean, is that something you miss doing, or have you really thrived in this kind of executive role and appreciate what you're doing now?
Um, I feel like I don't miss it as much because I still do it. So, being part of such a big team, we're providing coverage for our staff whenever they need. So I do get to, from time to time, do an ICRA. I do from time to
Okay, there you
time
go.
get to do an EOC or round down patients or, um, have those conversations with families when needed. And so it's still part of my job, but I love what I do. I wouldn't change it. to go back to the front line. I really enjoy being part of a bigger picture in this manner.
That's good. That's good. And you were in this role, it looks like, for about 5 or 6 years, and then now you're where you are now, and you've got the system director title. But it looks like that was your first time going to a different health system. So I'm curious as to what was that like? I mean, was it different? How was that experience? I guess a new culture, new leadership, new everything. What was that
It
transition
was
like for
new
you?
everything. We moved from Chicago, Illinois, to Louisville, Kentucky, which two different dynamics. But we love it. I love my new healthcare system. Honestly, what drove me here was the ability to be part of other departments and include, leadership and teamwork and collaboration within health. Within my role, I've also been able to be part of sepsis work as well. So it's become a really uh, bigger scope for me, which I enjoy. It's something that I desired to have more of. So my current role allows me to do that with a bigger team with more resources, and it's been great thus far. I mean, it's been challenging. It's been a lot of work, but that's what I wanted, was a challenge, and to be able to expand my skills and my ability to do more process improvement type of work across multiple um, departments outside of just infection prevention.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like you've added employee health is one of the things that you've kind of are responsible for now. So I want to ask about that a little bit because historically, I mean, those two positions were combined often, especially at smaller facilities, and it's progressed to where you rarely see those things combined now. Um, and frankly, I mean, I talk to infection preventionists every day, and a lot of times, if you mention employee health, they will run as fast as they can to get away from that. So I'm curious. You obviously welcomed getting additional departments under you, but I'm curious your thoughts on um, employee health. I mean, does it make sense for that to be a combined role, or do you understand separating it, and have you enjoyed that? I guess being part of your stuff now.
Yes. So infection prevention and employee health obviously are two different departments. And I've seen it done the other way, where there were two different departments, and it worked well. I also see lots of benefits with combining the leadership for those two departments. I have two directors that oversee infection prevention. And then employee health are two separate departments under me. So they have their own leadership that supports those two departments. The beauty of combining them is there are a lot of things that we've worked really well together, like our bloodborne pathogen exposure policies, our COVID policies, and managing those, and updating them with the new guidelines, flu shot requirements, just vaccination requirements in general. We were able to incorporate hand hygiene into every new hire visit to allow for them to get the training on what hand hygiene looks like, what the 5 moments are, and then to also have the ability for them to observe performing correct hand hygiene. So that has really helped us create those partnerships. And there are nurses in employee health who also are interested in infection prevention. And we're working to see how we can better cross function and help each other out, because there are some smaller hospitals within our organization where it makes sense to have that dual role. And we currently have one IP who's also an employee health nurse. But in our outpatient areas where, when they're going to function to do the annual testing or to give flu shots, those are also times where we can incorporate IP rounding in. They're already there. And if
Yeah.
they're trained to do the rounding, that's something that we can partner on. So this has been a really great thing to have them combined, and we're able to collaborate and come up with processes that really make efficiency a priority while still giving time back on both ends to, do other things that are more employee health or IP specific.
Cool. Okay. So you're now, I mean, how big of a team are you over? I mean, how many people report up to you? Maybe not directly. I know at that level, a lot of times you have indirect reporting structures and whatnot, but how many teams and how many people are you responsible for?
Yeah, so within my leadership team, I have at the moment three directors, one for infection prevention, one for employee health, and one for sepsis care. And underneath employee health and infection prevention, there are managers, one each. And then we have a surveillance team, and we have facility infection preventionist, we have facility employee health nurses. We also have a hand hygiene program where we hire PRN staff to do hand hygiene audits at each of the facilities. So it's a very, very well put together department that has unbiased observations for hand hygiene. These are nursing students, these are other students, or these are folks who have the ability to work part time or as needed. Especially on the afternoon shifts and the weekend shifts. So we have that team. So I don't know the exact count, but I believe it's over 50 plus team members
Wow.
that report through my structure.
Wow. So I mean, yeah, you're dealing with a lot of people. I'm curious now. I'm sure you've been involved in a lot of hiring and interviews and all of this to build a team. But when you're interviewing an infection preventionist in particular, are there certain skill sets or personality traits that you really try to identify on an interview, or like, what do you look for to just kind of know the like, okay, yeah, they are made for this job, or they're going to do well?
Yes, I tend to hire more for personality than knowledge. And I purposely do that because in order to work as an infection preventionist, or what my definition of success in infection prevention is, really evolves around being collaborative and having those soft skills to communicate difficult messages, to get buy-in, to get arms around process improvement, to be proactive, to be a self-starter, to really not just do what's listed in your job description, but to really be on the outlook for potential problems, and to have a risk mentality to say, well, X, Y, and Z happened, but ABC also happened. XYZ is a little bit less harmful than ABC. If you had to choose one or the other, then XYZ is the right solution. To kind of think more in the gray area, and to not always have a black and white perspective. I know that's really hard for some people to really think about because patient safety is so important. We want to have zero infections, we want to have zero risk. But you also need the ability to mitigate risk. You cannot eliminate all risks. You're going to have risks, but how do we mitigate those risks? And having that mentality to quickly come to that conclusion, and to also think about ways that you can help with that and how you communicate that and be collaborative are things that I look for. So, if you have many years in infection prevention is a plus, but based on behavioral based questions and some other questions, if I don't get a sense that you're collaborative, or you try to um, be flexible and be a self-starter, then that may not be a good fit for you, at
Um,
least in my perspective.
and no, that makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to kind of your experience or your background coming into a role, um, do you have any preferences on what you like, or if you were to kind of start from scratch and build a team? I guess what would a ideal team makeup be for you, background wise?
Like education wise.
Education wise, yeah. I mean, you see health systems that will only hire nurses, for example, or you have nurses, or you have people that um, will take med techs or nurses, but really just will not entertain MPH for whatever reason. So I'm just curious your hiring philosophy. I mean, do you have anybody that you prefer, or anybody that you're against, or do you just want the most diverse team possible? Or I guess what would your what would your ideal team be if you could kind of draw it out?
Yeah, so the ideal team is, I've had it two different ways. In my previous, with my previous employer, it wasn't all nurses. I was able to employ MPHs and, lab techs, along with nurses. And that really helped create a diverse team. It really helped create um, people's skill sets being utilized in a different manner. Like when we had a research project that we were doing, my team members who were more versed in statistical analysis, they were able to complete that. Where when it comes to nursing related, the clinical members of the team were able to, be more helpful with those aspects. So I do think diversity has a lot to offer. But at the same time, there is also a good attribution to having a nursing background. As it comes to infection prevention, I've seen it done both ways, where you know, one one system might like just all nurses, another system might like a diverse background. I think they both work. It really depends on how you utilize those skill sets. And I've seen both of those models be very successful.
Tell me, let's see. You strike me as somebody that likes to take a lot of things on, likes to challenge yourself. So I'm curious, do you have, or have you had throughout your career, any sort of, I'll call it extracurricular stuff that you've done, whether that be APIC involvement at various levels or publications, or do you have anything that you've just kind of done that's just a little bit extra that you would encourage other people to do, or that you've really found value in?
Yes, I, have a big passion for process improvement. And I've taken the journey with my previous employer and then was able to complete it here, was to go through the Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certification.
Cool.
Going through that process and understanding the DMAIC model really helps me do my day-to-day job more efficiently, because you can identify a problem, you could find solutions, but if they're not effective solutions, or if you don't have a way to monitor them, then those solutions are not, the right action plan for the problem that you've identified. I really encourage everyone in infection prevention to have some sort of training, or even just be a part of a process improvement project to see from start to finish, because that's where we do the biggest impact, is to be able to help make change and help go through those things. I am currently part of APIC. I think APIC is a really great organization for infection preventionists to be a part of. We have a really engaged local chapter here. I was also part of a very engaged chapter in Chicago as well. And I know it's definitely something that allows us to go to conferences, to network, and to have additional resources. Um, Outside of those two things, I have three kids, little ones, and I like to be their soccer coach, and to, get them involved in as many extracurricular activities as possible. So I'm currently learning violin with my daughter,
Wow.
and I coach my other daughter's soccer team. And my youngest and I have plans to get our black belts in karate together. So,
Wow, that's awesome. I've got four kids myself, all under 6 years old, so we're going through that.
Yeah.
that deal too. So it's a lot of fun and a lot of time. How do you? This isn't a question that I've gotten to ask many people, but um, how have you handled the time? I mean, you're responsible for so much of the hospital, and it's so important to so many people. Um, how have you balanced? I mean, how do you deal with the work life balance that's involved with having kids at the house?
Yes, it starts with having a very understanding partner. My husband has been the biggest rock and cheerleader in my career path. And, he was with me from that infection prevention coordinator position in 2014 and before then. So he's seen me take a change in my career path by just having someone who understands what my desires are, and it's obviously reciprocated from me to him as well, but just having that support system, and but really understanding that my job is not a job, that it's my lifestyle, that if it takes putting the kids to bed and responding to emails or getting caught up on things or preparing for the next day, I'm willing to do that. And sometimes that could be difficult for others to understand that it's a lifestyle and expect it to be, pretty defined job, because it's not. And you need to be able to be flexible and want to do additional things like spending time with your family. Like, I tell my team, between 6 and 8 I may not answer you because I'm having dinner with my family and bath time and bedtime, that I want to be actively present and not on my phone. So just defining those boundaries, even if it's for 2 hours to spend with your kids every day, that has allowed me to be, feel fulfilled in being a mother, and as well as having this role. And
That's
then also
awesome.
spending
That's
time
awesome.
with your significant other. I mean, I've made it my goal to allow for that time to spend with my husband as well. If it means watching our favorite TV show without answering emails or checking my phone every 30 seconds, like, I'm committed to doing that. So just understanding which hats do you want to wear and how do you want to commit to those hats, and keeping to your commitment is what has helped me have my work-life balance and be happy about it.
That's tremendous. I guess it's not as much as a question, but most of our most people that engage with our content and our listeners are either people that are entertaining the idea of an infection prevention career, or they're in it and wanting to actively grow. So I'm just curious if you have any encouragement or any insight that you'd like to kind of share with them as they are exploring kind of what this might look like.
Yeah, of course. I think we definitely need more people in infection prevention and being infection preventionist. I really encourage you to identify what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about surveillance and you're really good at data, there's a job for you out there in infection prevention where you can be in data and analytics and be that person and still impact infection prevention. If you're a people's person, I mean, I highly encourage you to explore leadership opportunities. You do have to have those soft skills to be a leader, to lead people as well as processes. And if you really love being at the bedside and being a clinical team member, being an infection preventionist is really about being boots on the ground and rounding and being proactive. And there's a place for you in this role as well. And everyone else, who might have not a nursing degree or a typical clinical degree, if you have other backgrounds and you're interested in infection prevention, there is a place for you in this role as well. And, you just have to find the right role that fits you. And also just understanding that change is always necessary, challenges are always necessary, that if you get too comfortable, that is not going to last. So, how you grow yourself is understanding that. And I really encourage you to try it like I did many years ago. Because I think you'll find a place for you in infection prevention.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Voice for Infection Prevention. We hope you found our discussions informative and insightful. Remember to subscribe to our podcast for more conversations with experts in the field, and don't forget to leave us a review to let us know what you think. For additional resources and to stay updated on the latest news in infection prevention, visit our website at voiceforip.com. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, stay safe and continue your commitment to excellence in infection prevention. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Voice for Infection Prevention. We hope you found our discussions informative and insightful. Remember to subscribe to our podcast for more conversations with experts in the field, and don't forget to leave us a review to let us know what you think. For additional resources and to stay updated on the latest news in infection prevention, visit our website at voiceforip.com. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, stay safe and continue your commitment to excellence in infection prevention.